Rafik lived a quiet life on the outer edge of space. He was not a soldier, not a leader, and not rich. He worked as a repair engineer on the colony known as Juno 9, a small human settlement built on a rocky moon near the asteroid field. His job was simple: fix broken machines, repair old satellites, and keep the colony running smoothly. People liked him because he was honest and never caused trouble. One evening, as the orange sun of the nearby star dipped behind the gray hills of the moon, Rafik got an alert on his screen. It was a weak distress signal, old and fading. Most people would ignore it. Signals came and went all the time in deep space, usually from broken drones or old mining bots. But Rafik was curious, and he believed every signal came from someone or something that needed help. He prepared his small ship, the Xena, and flew out into the asteroid field. The rocks floated slowly, silent and cold. His radar showed the signal was coming from behind a large asteroid shaped like a claw. As he moved closer, something came into view. It was an old alien ship, half destroyed and floating in silence. The ship was covered in burns and had holes along the sides. One engine was completely broken. It looked like it had been attacked and then left to drift. Rafik scanned the area. No life signs, no working systems. Still, he decided to go inside. He wore his light space suit and entered through a broken hatch. The inside was dark and cold. Wires hung from the ceiling. Panels blinked weakly. He walked through the narrow halls, stepping carefully. Then he saw something that made his heart beat faster. Cages. Several metal cages were lined up in a storage room. Most of them were empty, the doors open. But in one corner cage, something moved. It was a figure, small, silver-skinned, and wrapped in a thin blanket. The being was weak, barely breathing. Rafik knelt and looked closer. It was a woman, not human, but clearly alive. Her eyes were closed. She had soft, smooth features and long silver-white hair. Her skin had a soft glow like moonlight, but it looked pale and tired. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at him. No words, just fear, pain, and a quiet hope. Rafik didn't speak. He just nodded and whispered, "It's okay. I'll get you out." He opened the cage gently and picked her up in his arms. She was light and cold, like snow. Carefully, he carried her back to his ship and placed her in the healing pod. He gave her warm fluid and medicine. Slowly, her breathing became calm. Back at Juno 9, Rafik didn't tell anyone. He knew the rules. No alien life forms were allowed without official permission. But he also knew this was wrong. She needed help, not more cages. He hid her in his small house, behind thick curtains in the back room. He used his savings to buy better medicine and food. For many days, the woman didn't speak. She just looked at the window, sometimes watching the stars. But every day, she grew stronger. One morning, as Rafik brought her warm soup, she finally spoke. "My name is Ina," she said in a soft voice. Rafik smiled gently. "I'm Rafik." Ina looked at him with calm eyes. "You saved me. You were trapped." He replied simply, "I couldn't leave you." She nodded slowly. Many would have. They sat in silence for a while. Rafik didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just made sure she had food, warmth, and safety every few days. She shared small pieces of her story. Ina belonged to a race called the Valari. They lived on beautiful green worlds far from human space. Her people believed in peace, balance, and harmony with nature. But a group of space raiders had attacked her ship while she was traveling. They took her and others, locking them in cages to be sold. "I don't know what happened to the rest," Ina whispered once, her voice shaking. "Maybe I'm the only one left." Rafik didn't have answers. He only gave her a blanket and said, "You're safe now." Over time, she learned his language better. She helped clean the house, fix small tools, and even laughed at his jokes. She was kind and graceful. Sometimes, she would sing soft songs in her language when the night was quiet. But danger was always close. One afternoon, loud alarms rang in the colony. Security forces had picked up traces of alien DNA and were scanning homes. Rafik stayed calm. He hid Ina under the floor panel of his workshop, covering her with tools and blankets. Soldiers came, asked questions, and left when they were gone. Rafik opened the panel and helped her out. "You risked everything," she said, eyes wide. "You're not a danger," Rafik answered. "You're a guest." Ina touched his hand. "In my world, this kind of kindness is rare." Rafik smiled quietly. "In mine too." That night, Ina looked up at the stars through the window. She stood silently, holding a small silver pendant from around her neck. She turned to Rafik and said, "One day, I will leave. I must find my people, or at least know what happened." Rafik nodded. "When you're ready, I'll help you." He didn't try to stop her. He knew she had her own path, but something deep inside told him this moment would change everything, not just for them, but for many. And as Ina looked back at him, her silver eyes soft but full of quiet strength, Rafik knew something else too. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. After the raid alarms passed, life slowly returned to normal on Juno 9. But for Rafik, things had changed. He now shared his quiet home with someone from a world he had never known. Ina stayed hidden most of the time, only coming out when it was safe. But inside the small house, she and Rafik built a peaceful routine. Every morning, Rafik made warm breakfast and checked the colony's machine reports. Ina would sit by the window, learning how to read and write the human language using an old tablet Rafik gave her. She picked up the words quickly. Her mind was sharp and her memory strong. Some days, when the colony was busy and the streets were empty, Rafik and Ina walked together to the old scrapyard behind the power station. It was a quiet place filled with broken machines and old ship parts. Rafik liked to go there to collect items he could fix or use in his workshop. Ina enjoyed walking among the metal piles. She would study the strange machines, sometimes asking questions. Rafik explained everything simply, and soon she started helping him fix small things: wires, motors, and even a water pump. "You learn fast," Rafik told her one day as she repaired a damaged panel. Ina smiled. "In my home, we believe that knowledge is the seed of strength." Rafik nodded. "I believe that too." One night, while sitting on the roof and watching the stars, Ina told Rafik more about her people. The Valari live on green planets with tall trees, quiet rivers, and silver skies. We live close to nature. We don't build tall buildings or big machines like humans, but we build music, art, and light. She looked up at the stars. "My family was part of the Star Council. We helped guide the younger ones. I was trained to be a leader, but I never wanted power. I wanted to travel, to learn from other worlds." Rafik looked at her with respect. "You are brave." Ina turned to him. "No, you are. You risked everything to save someone you didn't know." Rafik shook his head. "I only did what was right." Ina was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You gave me more than safety. You gave me a second life." Days turned into weeks. Ina grew stronger. She began helping Rafik in the workshop more often. She also taught him a few words from her own language. It sounded like soft wind and flowing water. But even as they grew close, Ina knew she could not stay forever. One evening, she found Rafik in the scrapyard, working on a broken engine. "I want to leave soon," she said softly. Rafik stopped his work and looked at her. His face was calm, but there was sadness in his eyes. "I thought you might say that," he replied. "I have to try to find my people," she said. "Even if they are gone, I need to know." Rafik stood up and walked over to a large piece of metal covered in a tarp. He pulled it away, revealing an old small ship. It was damaged, dusty, and had no engine, but the body was strong. "I started fixing this the day you told me your name," he said. Ina looked at the ship with wide eyes. "You built this for me." "I'm not finished," Rafik said. "But if we work together, it will fly." For the next several weeks, they worked day and night. Ina learned how to connect power lines, attach panels, and install sensors. Rafik installed a hidden cloaking device using old satellite parts. It would keep her safe from raiders and scanners. They painted the ship with simple colors: gray and silver, with a blue mark on the side. Ina chose the symbol, a small leaf with 3 stars above it. It means hope from silence in my language, she explained. As the final night came, Ina packed her few belongings, a silver pendant, her tablet, and a cloth from her home. She stood outside with Rafik, the ship glowing softly under the moonlight. Rafik handed her a small box. Inside was a metal tool shaped like a coin with wires on the edge. This will help you fix basic systems if anything breaks, he said. Ina smiled and held the gift close. I have something for you too, she said, removing her pendant. She placed it in his hand. It was cool and smooth, with a soft light at its center. If you ever need help, she said, show this to any Valari ship. They will know what it means. Rafik didn't speak. He only nodded. Ina stepped into the ship and started the engine. The lights hummed, and the ship slowly lifted into the sky. She looked down one last time at the man who had saved her. I will return, she said, her voice strong. And then the ship disappeared into the stars. Rafik stood alone, holding the pendant in his hand. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He simply looked at the stars, thinking of the quiet girl with silver eyes and the strength of 1,000 suns. Life on Juno 9 went on, but something inside Rafik had changed. He now believed that every small action could change the course of the universe, that helping one lost soul could light up many dark worlds, and that even if she never returned, he had done the right thing. Because in the end, true kindness doesn't ask for reward. It simply gives. Months passed after Ina left, and the small colony of Juno 9 returned to its usual rhythm. The days were quiet, and the stars above remained the same, shining like always. But for Rafik, everything felt different. His house was still full of tools and half-fixed machines. The teapot still steamed every morning, but the silence inside was heavier. He often found himself turning to speak, only to remember that Ina was gone. He missed her calm voice, her questions about human things, her gentle smile when she fixed something right. But most of all, he missed the feeling of being needed, not for work, but as a friend. Still, Rafik did not complain. He had helped her escape, and that was all that mattered. He placed her silver pendant in a small wooden box and kept it on his workbench. Whenever he felt lonely, he held it for a moment. The soft light in the center still glowed. She said she'll return, Rafik whispered to himself one night. I believe her. Juno 9 was not an important colony. It had only a few hundred people, mostly workers, farmers, and machine engineers. But from time to time, trade ships passed by, bringing news from the galaxy. One morning, while fixing the broken arm of a farming bot, Rafik heard loud voices near the colony square. People were gathered around a screen. Curious, he walked closer. A trade ship had shared recent news from Deep Space News about the Valari, the same race Ina belonged to. According to the report, a group of Valari survivors had united several star systems. They had formed something called the Valari Union, a peaceful alliance of planets that had once been lost or scattered after the attacks by raiders. They rebuilt themselves. One man said, they're growing fast. Another added, Rafik stood silently, his heart beating faster. He thought of Ina. Could she be part of this? Had she found her people? He didn't say anything to others. He just walked back to his home and sat on the porch, staring at the blue sky. That night, he dreamed of silver forests and skies filled with songs. In the dream, Ina stood under a glowing tree, looking up, her eyes bright with hope. Years passed. Rafik grew older. His beard turned gray, and his hands became rough with work. He still lived alone in the same small house. People respected him not for being loud or strong, but for being wise and kind. Whenever someone had trouble with their machines, they came to Rafik. He never said no. He fixed things with care, just like always. But deep in his heart, the memory of Ina never faded. He often went to the scrapyard, where they had spent time together. He would sit on the old metal box they used as a seat and look at the sky, waiting for a ship that never came. Some people thought he was just remembering old times. Others believed he had made up the story about the alien girl. But Rafik didn't try to prove anything. He didn't need to. He knew what he had seen. He knew what he had done. And he trusted Ina. One morning, just as the sun began to rise behind the hills, a strange sound filled the sky. It was not a mining ship, not a trader, not a patrol. It was deep and powerful, like the hum of stars. The ground trembled softly. Birds flew into the air. People came out of their homes and looked up. In the sky above Juno 9, a giant golden ship appeared. It was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Its body was smooth and shining, shaped like a crescent moon. Blue lights ran along its edges. It made no noise, only a soft hum like music. Fear spread through the crowd. Is it a warship? Are we under attack? But the ship didn't fire. It didn't move closer. It simply hovered above the colony and then sent a clear message in a calm voice. We come in peace. We seek Rafik of Juno 9. The people turned in surprise. Rafik, standing at the edge of the crowd, felt everyone looking at him. He stepped forward slowly, heart beating fast. The ship lowered a glowing platform onto the ground. A door opened from inside. She stepped out. She was taller now, her clothes shining with silver and blue light. She wore a robe with a crown of small white stars around her head. Her eyes were calm but full of strength. Guards stood behind her, dressed in robes like the sea. It was Ina, but not the Ina he had once rescued. This Ina had become a leader, a symbol of her people. She walked forward, and the guards stayed behind. The humans watched in silence. Ina stopped in front of Rafik. Then she bowed. Do you remember me? She asked. Rafik smiled gently. How could I forget? Ina's eyes softened. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small metal piece. It was the tool coin Rafik had given her the day she left. I kept it with me all these years. She said, it reminded me of kindness, of hope, of you. Rafik said nothing. His eyes were full. Ina turned to the people and spoke clearly. This man saved me when I was weak and lost. He gave me a place to heal, to live, and to dream again. Because of him, I found my strength. I found my people, and now I stand before you as a queen. Gasps filled the crowd. Some people looked at Rafik in disbelief. Ina looked back at him. I told you I would return. That night, the sky of Juno 9 glowed with lights from the golden ship. Rafik sat quietly in his home. Ina sat across from him, without her crown. Just like old times, you have changed the stars, Ina. He said. She smiled. And you changed. Me. They sat in silence for a long time. But the silence was no longer heavy. It was full of peace. And the silver pendant still glowed. The next morning, the colony of Juno 9 was full of quiet excitement. People gathered in the open square, standing close together, whispering to one another. No one had ever seen such a ship before, and no one had ever seen an alien queen walk among humans with so much grace and peace. Ina, once a weak and silent guest hidden in Rafik's back room, now stood as a queen before the entire colony. Her robe moved gently in the soft wind, and the silver crown above her head sparkled under the morning sun. Rafik stood beside her. He wore simple clothes, stained with oil and dust. But beside the queen of the Valari, he stood straight and calm. He still didn't speak much. He never liked attention. But today, all eyes were on him. Ina raised her hand and spoke, her voice clear and warm. I bring peace, I bring gifts, and I bring respect. She looked around at the people, her silver eyes shining. This colony helped one of us when we were lost. That one human act of kindness changed the future of many worlds. No one moved. The silence was deep. Then she turned to Rafik. This man, Rafik, once gave me shelter when I was nothing more than a silent stranger. He asked nothing from me. He protected me when others would have turned me away. A soft hum came from the golden ship. The guards opened a long case, and inside were small glowing crystals clear as ice. Pulsing gently with energy. Ina stepped aside. One of her advisors, a tall Valari elder named Selin, walked forward and addressed the humans. These crystals are living energy cells. They can power your colony for the next 100 years without pollution or breakdown. They are a gift from the Valari Union. The people gasped. The governor of Juno 9, a short man named Miran, stepped forward nervously. "This is too much," he said, bowing slightly. Ina smiled. "It is only the beginning." Then she pointed toward the sky. The golden ship sent out a signal, and high above, 3 more ships appeared, each carrying tools, machines, and seeds. "We will help you grow your food faster, clean your water, and heal your sick," Ina said. Rafik watched all this quietly. He had never asked for reward. But now, his small home, the forgotten colony, and its simple people were being lifted towards something new. That evening, Ina walked alone through the colony streets. The people watched her from windows, amazed at how she smiled and greeted them. She stopped by a group of children playing near the garden and knelt to speak with them. She gave each of them a small stone that glowed faintly. "It will light up when you are near someone with a kind heart," she told them. The children laughed and ran off, showing the stones to their parents. Later, Ina returned to Rafik's home. He had cleaned the house and placed the cups of warm tea on the table. They sat together like old times. "You changed," Rafik said softly, holding his cup. Ina looked at him with a gentle smile. "I had to. I was given a second chance. You're strong now. You lead many." "I had a good teacher," she replied. They sat in silence for a while. Then Rafik asked, "Do they all follow you?" Ina nodded. "Not all at first. Some of my people were afraid. We had lost so much. But when they saw me return, they remembered hope." She looked out the window at the quiet colony. "And now I want others to know that hope can come from anywhere, even from a lonely human on a forgotten moon." The next day, the Valari began helping the colony. Machines planted crops that grew 3 times faster. Water from underground was cleaned and brought up in shining pipes. Medical centers were upgraded with soft healing lights that could cure burns and sickness in hours. People could not believe it. Children ran around laughing. The old could walk without pain. And for the first time in years, the air felt fresh and full of life. Rafik didn't take part in the ceremonies. He stayed busy helping the Valari engineers connect machines and explain human tools. He preferred work over speeches. But the Valari respected him deeply. Wherever he walked, they greeted him with a hand over their heart. They called him First Light, a title they gave to those who guide others without wanting anything in return. One evening, while sitting on the edge of the scrapyard, Ina joined him. "You still come here?" she asked. Rafik smiled. "Old habits." She sat beside him. "This place was once full of broken things," she said. "It still is." Rafik replied with a chuckle. She looked at him kindly. "But sometimes broken things hold the strongest light." Rafik nodded. "And sometimes that light flies away and comes back as a queen." They both laughed before she left. Ina invited the people of Juno 9 to a farewell gathering under the stars. Lights from the Valari ships lit up the sky like a festival. Music, soft and sweet, filled the air. The humans and Valari danced together, laughed together, and shared food and stories. Rafik stood near the back, watching with quiet pride. Ina walked to the center and raised her hand. "This colony is now a friend of the Valari Union," she said. "We will protect it. We will learn from each other. And we will remember that peace begins with one kind choice." She looked at Rafik again, her voice full of warmth. "Let his story be a star to guide others." Everyone clapped and cheered, but Rafik only smiled and looked up. The stars were bright tonight, brighter than he had ever seen them before. Later, as the celebration ended, Ina returned to the golden ship. She stood at the entrance, holding her crown in her hands. "Rafik," she said quietly. He stepped forward. "I will return again. This time not as a queen, but as your friend, always." Rafik nodded. "You are always welcome." She gave him a long look, then stepped inside. The ship rose slowly into the sky dot as it disappeared among the stars. Rafik stood alone, the wind brushing his face. But this time, he did not feel lonely. He felt proud, because one choice, made with a quiet heart, had echoed across the stars. The golden ship had left, but its light stayed behind. Juno 9 was no longer just a quiet colony on the edge of space. It had changed. The once dry, dusty land now grew green crops. The old water tanks were replaced with crystal-pure fountains. The broken medical unit had become a shining place of healing. People no longer worried about food or sickness, but most of all, the people of Juno 9 felt something new hope. Children spoke of stars and ships. Workers smiled more often. Even the governor, Miran, who had always been strict and quiet, now walked around greeting people with joy, and his voice in the center of the colony. A tall white stone was placed. On it, carved in both human and Valari language, were these words: "Kindness is the first step toward peace." Rafik of Juno 9, First Light Traffic, didn't ask for it. He didn't want to be called a hero, but the people insisted. And so, the stone stood, surrounded by flowers and small lights. A reminder of what had begun with a simple choice. Rafik's days returned to a gentle rhythm. He worked in his small workshop, helping fix machines and teaching the young ones how to repair things. More people now came to him, not only for help with tools, but also for advice. He never gave long speeches. He just listened carefully and gave simple words that stayed in the heart. One morning, a young boy named Tama visited him. "Uncle Rafik," he said, "is it true that you saved the queen of the sky?" Rafik smiled. "I didn't save a queen. I helped a person who needed help, but she became a queen," Thomas said with wide eyes. "Yes." Rafik nodded. "But before that, she was just like you, tired, scared, and looking for hope." Tama thought for a moment. "I want to help people too." Rafik patted his shoulder. "Then you already have a strong heart." More Valari ships visited Juno 9 in the following months. They came not as rulers, but as friends. They brought books that glow with light, seeds that grew in any soil, and peaceful music that played without machines. A Valari learning center was built near the main square. Humans and Valari children studied together, learning languages, stories, and histories. The colony was no longer alone. It was now part of something bigger, the Valari Human Peace Circle. Every time a ship landed, the first question the Valari asked was always the same: "Where's First Light?" And Rafik, with his simple clothes and calm face, would greet them. At the gates, one evening, as the stars turned red in the sky, a special message arrived. A small round drone floated into Rafik's workshop. It glowed softly and opened a small screen, and his face appeared. She looked older, more graceful, with gold markings on her forehead, a symbol of her higher rank. "Rafik," she said with a warm smile, "I hope your days are peaceful." The message was not live. It had been sent across light years. "I wish I could return to Juno 9 soon, but my people need me here. The union is growing, and many new members are joining. Still, I think of our time often. I still carry the tool you gave me, and the memory of tea at your table." She paused, then added softly, "You once said true kindness doesn't ask for reward. But today, I wish to offer something, not as payment, but as a promise kept." The screen changed. A new image appeared. A map of stars. At the center was a shining dot marked Star Bridge 1. And his voice continued, "We are building a star bridge between our worlds, a gate of travel and learning, and we wish Juno 9 to be its first anchor." The message ended with one final line: "From the hand that once lifted me up, now rises the bridge to a better future." Rafik sat in silence for a while after the drone shut down. Then he stood, walked outside, and looked at the stars. The construction of the star bridge began quickly. Valari engineers worked with human builders. Huge glowing pillars were raised outside the colony. They connected through blue energy beams that pulsed softly. These pillars would open a safe path through space, allowing travel between distant planets in seconds. People from other colonies visited Juno 9 just to see the building of the star bridge. Scientists, teachers, and peace workers came to learn. Rafik greeted all who arrived, offering tea and simple conversation. One visitor, a leader from Earth, said, "You've done more for peace than any general." But Rafik only smiled. "All I did was open a door." When the star bridge was completed, a ceremony was held. Hundreds gathered near the pillars. Lights floated in the air like fireflies. A large screen showed Ina, speaking live from her palace. Across the stars, I look at this bridge, she said, and I see the memory of one quiet man who chose to help when no one else would. May this bridge connect not only worlds, but hearts. Then she turned to the camera. Rafik, my friend, this is your light. The crowd turned to Rafik. He stepped forward, still wearing his old work shirt. He looked at the crowd, then at the sky. I never wanted to be known, he said slowly. But if this story helps others choose kindness, then I am glad. He stepped back, and the first ship passed through the glowing star bridge traveling from Juno 9 to a Valari world. In a blink, cheers filled the air. That night, after the noise had faded and the lights were dim, Rafik walked alone to the garden behind his home. The flowers were blooming under the moonlight. The silver pendant Ina had given him still glowed softly. He sat under a small tree and closed his eyes. He remembered the day he had opened that broken ship door. The weak voice, the soft eyes, the simple thank you. No one could have guessed that moment would lead to this, but Rafik didn't need glory or praise. He only needed to know he had done the right thing. And tonight, with stars dancing above and peace growing below, he knew the truth. A promise made in silence had become a light that guided the galaxy. After the great star bridge was completed, Juno 9 became a shining name across the stars. Once, it was only a small colony on a quiet moon, far from important places. But now, it had become a center of peace, learning, and friendship between humans and the Valari. People came from many worlds to see the star bridge with their own eyes. Some came as visitors, others as students, and many came with the hope of starting new lives in a better place. Rafik, the quiet engineer who had once lived alone with his tools, was now known far beyond Juno 9. But he still lived in the same small home, still drank the same warm tea, and still helped anyone who knocked on his door. He did not change because of fame. He had never wanted it. He only wanted a peaceful life. And he had it along with something even greater, purpose. The Star Bridge wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol. It connected humans and Valari not only through space, but through trust, messages, food, medicine, and knowledge moved between worlds in moments. Children from both species studied together at the Learning Dome, a large, round building near the bridge. The Learning Dome had been in a special request. She had sent her personal teachers to help guide the next generation. Valari teachers taught about the history of stars, peaceful living, and nature's balance. Human teachers shared Earth science, books, and stories. Rafik was often invited to speak to the young ones. At first, he was shy, but Ina once said, even a quiet story can teach the loudest lessons. So, he spoke simply and kindly. He told them how he had once found a broken ship in an asteroid field. He told them how one small act of help can change the future. Sometimes, he said, you don't need a big ship or great power. Sometimes, you just need to open a door. One afternoon, as Rafik was walking past the bridge, he saw a young Valari girl sitting alone on the steps. She looked sad. He walked over and sat beside her. Why the long face? He asked gently. She looked up. The other children think I'm strange. Rafik smiled. Why? I don't speak their words very well, and I don't know how to play their games. He nodded. I didn't speak in his words at first either, but we still became friends. The girl looked at him, curious. You knew Queen Ina? She was my guest once, Rafik said, before she became a queen. The girl's eyes grew wide. And you helped her. I only gave her a place to rest, he replied. She did the rest herself. The girl thought for a moment, then asked, can you teach me one of your games? Rafik smiled. Only if you teach me one of yours, she laughed, and they began to play a simple stone game under the golden sky. That evening, a message came from the stars. It was marked with the royal seal of the Valari Union. Ina was coming. It had been nearly 2 full seasons since she last visited. The entire colony prepared to welcome her again. The square was cleaned, the gardens were decorated with glowing vines, and the children practiced a special welcome song in both human and Valari words. Rafik, however, didn't do anything special. He swept his small porch and made 2 cups of tea, as he always did. When the golden ship finally landed and Ina stepped out, the crowd clapped and cheered. She smiled warmly and greeted them all, but her eyes searched for only one person. She found Rafik standing near the garden, hands behind his back. Without her crown, without her royal robe, she looked just like the woman who once watched the stars from his window. Still the same house, she said. Still the same tea, he replied. They both smiled. Inside, Ina sat in her old chair. She looked around the room, her fingers brushing over the small wooden box that still held her pendant. You kept it, she said. It was never mine to lose, Rafik answered. Ina looked at him for a long moment. Then she said softly, I came to ask something. Rafik tilted his head. Ask anything. The Star Bridge is only the first step, she said. There are many more worlds. Some are still lost, still afraid. They don't know humans. They don't trust outsiders. I understand, Rafik said. I want you to come with me. She said gently, not as a leader, not as a hero, but as a bridge. Rafik was quiet. You want me to leave Juno 9. I want you to help others like you helped me. Speak to them. Show them what peace looks like, not through power, but through kindness. Rafik looked at the warm cup in his hands. For many years, his life had been here among machines and stars, friends and flowers. But then he looked at Ina. He remembered her as the lost traveler, then the queen. And now something more. A friend who still believed in him. He nodded slowly. I will go, but only if I can come back whenever I wish. Ina smiled wide. Always. The next day, a new chapter began. The second ship arrived, smaller than the royal one. It was fast, light, and peaceful. Its name, written on the side in both languages, was Light Path. Rafik stood near the ship, wearing his usual clothes. People came to say goodbye, though no one believed it was goodbye forever. Where are you going? Uncle Rafik asked. Tama, to visit new friends, Rafik replied, placing a hand on the boy's head. Will you tell them about us? I will tell them about kindness, he said, and about a little colony that became a bridge to the stars. As the ship lifted into the sky, Rafik looked out the window. Juno 9 became smaller and smaller, but his heart felt full. He was not leaving his home behind. He was carrying it with him, its light, its peace, and its promise, because the bridge was not just made of pillars and beams. It was made of people who choose to help, people who choose to care, people like Rafik. Rafik stood on the deck of the Light Path, looking out through the wide window. Endless stars stretched before him. Each one was a world, a hope, a future waiting to begin. Behind him, quiet hums from the ship's engine and the soft voice of Ina speaking to her team filled the air. She was no longer just a queen, she was a builder of peace. And Rafik, the quiet man from Juno 9, was now her bridge. Their journey had begun. The first planet they visited was Velen 4, a green world covered in lakes and soft blue trees. The people there were called the Corelli, tall and gentle beings with long arms and glowing eyes. They had suffered from an old war between traders, and they feared both humans and Valari. Ina spoke to their leaders, but many remained silent. They had heard too many promises before. So Rafik stepped forward. He didn't bring gifts or words of power. Instead, he walked among the people, helped repair their broken wells, and taught the children how to build small wind toys. He shared simple meals and listened to their stories. One day, an elder Corelli asked him, "Why do you help us? You gain nothing." Rafik smiled and said, "When I help someone, the world becomes a little better, and that is enough for me." The Corelli slowly opened their hearts. A few weeks later, a small Corelli child handed Rafik a flower made of woven grass. "You are a friend," she said. That one word traveled across Velen 4 like light. The Corelli agreed to open communication with the Union. Another bridge had been built. Their next stop was a mining colony on Farron Belt, where both humans and Valari worked in hard conditions. The place was full of smoke and machines. People there had grown tired and bitter. They believed no leader cared for them. When Ian arrived, many workers turned their backs. But Rafik didn't speak. He simply walked to a broken water pump and began fixing it. One by one, others came to help him. No one asked questions. They just worked together. After the pump was fixed, Rafik handed the first glass of water to a young worker. The man looked surprised. "You're the Queen's guest. Why are you helping me?" "Because I once needed help too," Rafik said. And someone gave it without asking why. That night, workers from all sides gathered to listen to Ina. They didn't see her crown or robe. They saw the kindness in her eyes and the truth in her words. They listened, and they believed that in each world they visited, the same thing happened. Not through speeches or weapons, but through trust, repair, and kindness. Rafik helped bring hearts together. Ina often said, "You carry no sword, yet you break walls stronger than steel." One day, after months of travel, they landed on a lonely moon called Ashen 3. It was cold, covered in gray dust, with only a small group of survivors living in caves. These people had escaped from a cruel war years ago and trusted no one. Ina stayed behind this time. She said, "This is not a place for a queen, but maybe it is a place for a friend." So Rafik walked alone into the caves, carrying only food, blankets, and light sticks. The people inside pointed weapons at him at first. "I come in peace," Rafik said, placing the food on the ground and stepping back. "No tricks, just help." He returned every day. Slowly, the people stopped hiding. He repaired their light panels, cleaned their water filters, and even helped plant small seeds in heat boxes. One night, the leader of the group, an old woman with a hard face, sat beside him. "You are strange," she said. "You are human, yet you act like no other." Rafik looked at the small sprout growing in front of them. "Maybe I am strange, but peace is strange too, and it always starts small." The woman stared at him, then nodded. "Then let us be strange together." That moon to open its heart. Months passed. Rafik grew older, but his heart remained strong. He missed Juno 9, sometimes its warm skies, its gardens, its silence. But every time he saw the species shake hands or a child smile, he knew this journey was worth it. One night, as the ship floated between stars, Ina joined him on the deck. "You've done more than anyone expected," she said. "I only walked where you showed me the path," Rafik replied. Ina looked at him. "The union has grown stronger. The worlds are talking to each other, trusting each other. And it started with one act of kindness." They were silent for a moment, watching the stars pass by. Then Ina said, "There's one more place I wish to go." "Where?" Rafik asked. "Home," she said softly. And so, the light path turned back to Juno 9. When the ship landed, children ran to the fields. Flowers had grown taller, and new homes stood where empty land once was. The learning dome was larger, and the gardens had signs in both languages. People gathered, singing the welcome song. But this time, it was not only for a queen. It was for Rafik too. Tama, now taller, stood with a group of young students. He ran to Rafik, holding a paper in his hand. "Uncle Rafik, we wrote stories about you in school." Rafik laughed and took the paper. "I hope you didn't make me too tall." Ina smiled beside him. Too late. That evening, as stars rose over Juno 9, the people gathered at the old square. A statue now stood in the center, to hands, one human and one Valari, holding a small glowing light between them. The plaque said, "Peace begins with one." Rafik stood in front of it, looking at the symbol. Ina stepped beside him. "Do you know what I remember most?" she asked. "What? The day you gave me shelter. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't care about what I could give. You just helped." "That's what anyone should do," Rafik replied. "But not everyone does," Ina said. "That's why you matter." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small seed in a glass sphere. "This is the starroot," she said. "It only grows when planted by both hands, yours and mine." Together, they placed the seed near the statue. Soft light spread from the soil. The first star glowed under the sky. A new future had begun. The end.